Good evening. No doubt you've heard of the All Right campaign. The project works to support and improve mental health as we recover and rebuild from the earthquakes. Tonight, CDHB Public Health Specialist Dr. Lucy Daith is my guest, and Lynched starts right now. Great to have your company this evening. Well, it's fair to say progress has been made when it comes to our mental health in the city, but also there's still a lot of work to do. The well-being of those with unsettled insurance and EQC claims remains a major concern for everybody, including the CDHB. And joining me tonight is Public Health Specialist Dr. Lucy Daith. Lovely to have you in the program. Thanks so much for coming in. In terms of natural disasters, major impacts on mental health, well, that just happens, and we know internationally that it can take between 5 and 10 years to actually fully recover. How does Christchurch's recovery, if you like, compare to the international stats?
Well, all disasters share common characteristics, but every disaster is unique, and so I think probably some of the unique characteristics of the Christchurch disaster is we don't know quite when recovery clicked in, because we had from September 2010 to December 2011 still getting the shaking, still getting 6s on the Richter scale. So possibly our recovery the clock can't start until December 2011 when the last 6 was. I think another factor for us is insurance, levels of insurance. I understand globally we've got unusually high levels of personal insurance, and that's fantastic, of course, but it's turned out to be a bit of a stressor for a lot of people because the sheer level of expectation, the sheer amount of work to do to settle those claims means that some people are caught in a horrible place.
So it's not so much the natural disaster that's been the main event in people's lives now, perhaps, that are making them stressed. It's the ongoing effects by dealing with EQC, by dealing with insurance companies. And I suppose we know it's easy to say we know this all too well, but I guess why we've got you on tonight is because I think it's very important to try and keep things in some kind of perspective. Easier said than done, I know, but I do believe it is possible, so that's why we've got you here. I want to also touch on, though, the good signs of the psychological recovery, because there are some good signs starting to show. Thank goodness for that, though.
Absolutely, and so the recovery clearly has started. However long the process is going to be, we know that that people are less scared of another big earthquake. We know that people are feeling better about their closer to their local neighbourhoods. People are caring for each other more. You know, there are some signs of psychosocial recovery that mean that people are on their way. There's signs of hope in the air, which is great.
You wouldn't think so, though, driving on the roads, though, would you sometimes?
Well, I mean, you talk about the secondary stresses. We discover they're called in the international literature. You know, when we did the first research for the All Right campaign, people told us that they'd experienced a double blow. You know, there was the earthquakes, and then there was the things that the earthquakes brought that they weren't really expecting. And that follows a typical international pattern, except that the secondary stresses are unique to each disaster. So our secondary stresses are things like having crap roads, and we're not used to that in Christchurch. We're used to easy commutes, easily getting from A to B in a predictable way, in a time that we know about, and so that's been a real stressor for people.
Do you think, as a result of the ongoing stresses that we all face in the city, like the broken roads, broken homes, that kind of stuff, do you think, in a way, it's become normal to feel stressed, but it's important actually not to feel normal about being stressed, though?
Absolutely, and there's a certain amount of stress in human life anyway, but I think what we're seeing, some of the international literature talks about the adaptive buffer, and I understand that in terms of, you know, an elastic band stretches and gives, and there's a point at which it perishes, and it feels like we have stretched, and some of us are quite, you know, feeling a bit perished, and so that's an important time to really care for our well-being.
When you say perished, you mean as in we're lacking the resources, we're lacking the emotional energy to just go through our daily lives?
So one of my colleagues who's a psychologist who specialises in disaster, he talks about the adaptive buffer wearing thin. It's like, like our car tyres. You expect them to take a certain amount of wear and tear, but they really, our emotional well-being has taken a real battering. And some people have better intrinsic resilience than others, and some people's circumstances, all our circumstances are slightly different. So we're all coping slightly differently.
46% of people reported in the recent survey reported health issues.
I think that was of the people who weren't settled, and I think it was 32% for the whole community who we talk to, and that seems like an awful lot.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And look, I mean, I'm no public expert like yourself, but I mean, when you think of things like stress, how often do we hear that stress is the precursor to something else? So it's so important to try and keep that.
Well, it was interesting because I was looking at those figures again, and I think they're tied in. So stress grinds us down. We care for ourselves less. That certainly shows in our research that fewer people are eating well, fewer people are taking exercise. That will grind us down again. And so it becomes a bit of a vicious circle. We are stressed, so we don't care for ourselves. Therefore, we are less able to cope. Therefore, we're more stressed. So we're trying to break that cycle because although we can't solve the big things like insurance, we can suggest that actually a bit of self-care is never more important than now.
And I'll tell you what, one reason why I decided to get you in here tonight, because I think it does work, the All Right campaign, which we'll discuss in more depth later on. I was visiting a friend in Build Hospital, and I was walking down that long corridor that's just been put up by a couple of old panels while the hospital's getting renovated. And along the panels were the All Right campaign, are you okay? Sort of funny jokes, nothing too salacious, but it was just lovely. And it just reminded me of it's nice to feel normal about not feeling normal, if that makes any sense at all.
Absolutely. We feel a whole range of emotions across the course of a day, across the course of a week, and that's all right. What we're trying to do with the campaign is start a conversation. So the question mark, all right, question mark, is really important to us because it's important that we say how we're feeling, and if we're not feeling great, that we make sure that we can do some things to change our mood.
And of course, on top of that, Kiwis aren't known for speaking out about feeling stressed.
Absolutely
so you are
not.
doing a service, aren't you? I mean, at the best of times, particularly New Zealand men, they like to bottle things up, and that's just not anecdotal evidence. You probably realise that is truth.
And we know that talk, and so there's a bit of a joke even in the title of the campaign. All right, I'm all right. It means don't ask me how I am. We're inviting people really to share genuinely how they are, because it's all right to say I'm over it today. Because that gives you an opportunity to care for me, but especially if I'm feeling all right today and you're feeling over it, we can work through it together.
Well, I want to discuss that later on the show, plus of course the All Right campaign. Coming up, we'll discuss practical, simple ways to actually get through. Do stay with us. Welcome back to CTV's Lynched program. My guest tonight is Public Health Specialist Dr. Lucy Daith. Doctor, in terms of this report that was released earlier on saying the number of stressed and anxious children admitted for specialised mental health care treatment in Canterbury has almost doubled since the earthquakes. Are we talking as a result of the effects of the earthquake? Do you think these are ongoing issues that perhaps have been mirrored by parental behaviour? What's going on?
Well, who would really know? There's certainly a rise, and we knew from the international literature that a rise in acute clinical need would appear at some stage. I think I'm not a clinician, but my colleagues expected it to come earlier, but it's certainly here now. And each case will be unique, so I mentioned that we've each got a different recipe of history and genetics and well-being characteristics, and so that will be a factor. But certainly my colleagues tell me that for many of the younger people, there is clearly their parents' earthquake stress has played a part in that.
And I guess it's imperative for parents to try and remember that, to actually put on that brave face, is it?
Well,
in a weird way.
Well, yes. I mean, certainly, the earthquakes were really scary for all of us, and part of parenting is to keep your children safe, and
that also means mentally though as well.
Absolutely,
mental reassurance.
and so that reassurance and taking care of our kids and paying attention to them is perhaps the most important thing, because the secondary stresses, the many things that have been thrown on us since the quakes, have made people very, very busy, and I wonder if part of it is that it's hard work parenting, but it's also hard work managing a rebuild, managing a job, getting across town. I wonder what we're saying with the campaign is that we must prioritise those relationships that give our life meaning, the key relationships in the family. We can't afford to neglect them at this time, and especially for young people, it's 4 years, that's a lifetime for some little kids. They absolutely have to have their childhood now and here, so it needs to be the best childhood possible.
I want to pick you up on that because, those stats really worry me, but I do wonder whether you may recall this when the Phillipstown school was going through, the so-called consultation progress. I was worried when I was seeing teachers, parents and former pupils crying in front of little kids, and I thought to myself, kids can be resilient. If you tell the child that they're going on an adventure to another school, if you flip it around and at least pretend to give them the sense of hope they so need, they will be okay. But I'm thinking back to my childhood. If I was to see my parents crying in front of me and seeing somebody of an authoritative figure crying, forgive me for saying this, I would probably think they're doing an absolute disservice to the mental health of that well-being of that child. What do you think?
I think it's a parent's job to be a grown-up. And so that is, and let their children be children. So as far as possible, for keeping the adult problems of the world, mediating them, you can't hide them completely.
When the kid sees a parent crying, of course they're going to be emotionally distressed by that because kids mirror their parents' behaviour.
Absolutely.
I just don't think it was probably a healthy thing for children to see. And
so parents getting the help they need and the places where they can, because we're not saying you need to have a brave face all the time.
No, of course not.
But the times and places and being able to yes, a brave face for the kids is probably a good thing, and certainly the attention and certainly the explanation of what's going on and the reassurance and the hope that actually there's enough love in the family to get through things, and that we can get the help that we need to get through it.
It is so important you're saying this because it is about putting on a brave face, sadly, but it's also about prioritising that stress you have in your life to make sure it's not impacting too much on the kids. I mean, with my parents, I'm sure they were very stressed out with various things that I found out later in life. But of course, you don't know that as a child. It's very important to make sure that your child's emotional well-being is top priority, really.
Well, I mean, we would say that life can be stressful, but the things that underpin the campaign are the things that promote mental well-being. So we work according to the 5 ways to wellbeing, which is connect, take notice, be active, give and learn. These are things that we can do all the time, and we need to be supporting our kids to do these things because kids are programmed to do that. And so making that space, I know you're going to talk about resources in a minute, but this is something that we put out, Tiny Adventures, and this was for helping parents to really make time for their kids. Just little, some of the exercises are 5, 10 minutes, an hour, just little games, because this is, if you're bringing your child up here and now, this is their life, this is the memories that you will be making for the rest of that child's life.
Doctor, where are those packs available from?
They're available from our website, which is cph.org.nz/resources, and you can download them there. And I understand that it's also an app, so if you go to the App Store and look up a pack of Tiny Adventures, you'll find them there.
The All Right campaign has essentially come about because there was a need. I hate to use the word in the marketplace, but you know what I mean. There was a need in this market in Canterbury to make sure people were doing okay. Those needs, as you say, evolve, they change. The timelines of stresses change as well. As a public health expert in the field that you work in, obviously you're seeing the needs changing all the time. In your view, what is the most pressing need in this city right now in terms of keeping the mental health in check?
Well, I think we have this opportunity to become a more emotionally literate people. You talked about our culture and our stiff upper lip and brave face. I think we have got the opportunity to practice these 5 ways and to recognise that it's the tiny things that make the difference that can be a deal breaker or a deal maker in terms of how the family is coping. So we would be pushing, you know, connect with your neighbours, take notice of the amazing sunrise this morning, learn, because we're learning all the time, give, and certainly we see that people really get a benefit from connecting and giving to their neighbours, and the other one, which I'm afraid I've forgotten.
We'll find out after the break.
Be active.
Yeah, be active, good. We'll come back and we'll extrapolate more of those shortly, but we'll also give you some of those tips that you'll need. And of course, we are coming into winter. Maybe it's a bit too early to say this, but it's never too early to talk about keeping our mental health in check, that's for sure. Plenty more to come as Lynched continues next. Welcome back to Lynched on CTV. My guest tonight is Public Health Specialist Dr. Lucy Daith. Great to have you on the program. The reason why you're here also is because the campaign that you're a part of is the All Right campaign. You can't miss it, it's everywhere. There are billboards around, there are some amazing funny creatures and some great characters. Also, it must be quite fun to be involved in this, because sometimes you do stunts and gags that make it onto YouTube, but they're light-hearted, they're fun, and every time I see them, they put a smile on my face.
Good, that's what they're there for. Yep.
We're going to show one right now. This will put a smile on your face. Take a look at this.
I am actually feeling pretty outrageous right now. I don't know about you, Joe.
I'm ready to share the love.
You're with Tim and Joe here on All Right Afternoons, bringing you a little Christmas cheer to get you through the day.
And here in the Garden City, it's warming up to 14 degrees. The time is 12:43, and it's time for another outrageous burst of All Right.
That's right. That means that we're going to head to our amazing All Righter-scope to find that special someone. And I think, Joe, I've already got a lock on someone down here at the Z petrol station on Curlis Road, pump number 5.
Oh, yeah, I see her. She's the one in the skirt. She's got the nice black boots on. I like her style.
She's pumping with some unleaded fuel in a little silver station wagon. You there in the nice dress, pumping gas into your red Mazda.
With your beautiful son. He's obviously an optimist, dressing for summer today.
We just wanted to give you the compliments of the season, to say Merry Christmas, and also to give you some complimentary fuel, because you definitely deserve a little outrageous burst of All Right.
Way to go.
Thank you. It's nice to have nice things happen, isn't it?
That's right.
Isn't that nice?
It makes me smile still.
It makes me smile. It makes me feel a little bit teary, because it's just so nice to do something just for the sake of it.
Absolutely.
Actually. And that's, I guess, in a way, that's almost the mission statement or some of the advice you give people. Because I want to talk about, we're coming up to winter, it can be tough, it gets cold, people have got EQC issues, insurance issues, the list goes on. But sometimes it is about just taking a step back, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And keeping things in perspective. But is it easier said than done, though?
Yeah,
you know?
Well, it is, but it's like all good habits. It's a matter of practice. You know, once you start to take notice of the little things that give you joy, that begins to build on itself. And there's a lot of scientific literature about the importance of gratitude, about the importance of taking notice of actually being in the moment rather than racing ahead in our heads to what I'm going to cook for tea. That you know,
because part of the stress can be historical stress, or it can be preemptive stress, can't it?
Absolutely.
So when you say living in the moment, which is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, what you're essentially saying is live in the moment. Tomorrow's tomorrow, right?
Well, I mean, live in the moment, because then you will have better resources for dealing with tomorrow. I mean, tomorrow may well be difficult still, but if you're well connected with your friends and family, you carry those things together. So the 5 ways to wellbeing have a huge amount of science behind them. So they were drawn up by the British government, who wanted to find a message that was as simple as and understandable as 5+ fruit and veggies a day. And so that's where they come from. And these are the things, you know, so they did a meta review of all the literature that provides for mental well-being, and these were the things that came out on top. There are some other things there, like having a meaningful job and having good nourishment, but of course those things aren't within our control every day if we haven't got a good job. It's not. So what we're trying to say is yes, we are able to control our well-being to a certain extent. 50% is handed to us genetically, 10% is situational. That's a small amount. The 40% that's left, we can play with. We can be quite malleable. So when we talk about the importance of parents, you know, good parenting is never wasted. You know, building time for your relationship, never wasted. It's never too late. You know, it's hard at the moment for many in Canterbury, but what the science seems to say, and what we certainly believe, is that if we care for each other and practice these well-being ways, it will change.
Also, I think from what I see on the radio and the various stories that come through to me personally, is I get the impression sometimes people forget that there is help available.
Absolutely.
If you do go, for example, if you're feeling stressed out, you're feeling depressed, clinically depressed even, you can go to your GP. Your GP is there to say, here are the different points of branches that you can go to seek help. Maybe it's the volunteer down the road that can help talk things through. Maybe it is. Maybe you do require that professional help. Maybe it's as simple as phoning the Canterbury support line, which we'll put up on the screen later on. But there is help available, but it's making sure people know that, though.
Yes, and it's very important that we don't think all our children in this city are going to hell in a handcart. They certainly aren't. We've got great kids all across the city. We know that mental health services are experiencing a rise in demand, but they can still cope, you know, and so if you need those services, do go to your GP. If you're one of those young people watching, you know, go and find an adult who you trust, your school nurse or one of your teachers, your parents, and keep going until you've got the help you need, because it's okay to talk about our feelings, and if you feel bad, it's okay to say that out loud and reach out to people, because people want to help.
And it's more likely that if you're feeling down, depressed, stressed, the person you talk to seek counsel to has been in that place too.
Absolutely.
Regardless of the circumstances.
Absolutely.
It's keeping it in perspective, isn't it?
Yes, and the whole, you know, we are all experts in our own well-being. We know what makes us feel good, and we need to find ways to nurture that and feed that.
You've got some resources here. I just want to quickly go through some of them again. So if parents, and I think it's really important to note that, you know, there are a lot of parents out there that are still going through stressful situations. I know it sounds almost condescending and patronising in a way, but there's nothing wrong with actually looking at these little pamphlets to remind yourself of what is important. You've got stuff there that for parents as well.
So this has gone very well. This is our roller coaster. We talk about the Canterbury roller coaster. You know, we're up and down. We feel stressed one day and cheerful the next. So this is something you can get for your fridge. It's got some little fridge magnets. You put your names. You put your name on your little carriage, and then you can say where you are today. And then the rest of the family will know, oh, she's feeling a bit tired, so maybe I'll do the washing up, kids. But she's feeling over the moon, well, we need to celebrate that. So that's gone very well in schools. This is about making memories. This one has just been around at the moment, which is about tomatatini, which was awesome at the weekend. And
that was fantastic.
And so we really wanted to stress that everyone has a different way of practicing their well-being, and for these people, they're kapa haka heroes. And kapa haka now, well, certainly I've been converted over the weekend, but these are people who nurture their well-being. These two
because they're engaged in activity.
Absolutely.
You're so right about that. My Māori culture is about nil. But even I got into it because it was so nice to see people smiling and getting engaged.
It's infectious, eh?
And we're so lucky, to be fair, that we are living in a city where there's so much happening. There is progress, and it's important to know that. I could talk to you for a lot longer, but we're simply out of time. I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you
so
very
much, Dr. Lucy Daith, everybody. And just a reminder, free counselling and other support is available. you can always ask for help, and please do so via the Canterbury support line. That number, if you're watching this right now, is 0800 777 846. That's 0800 777 846. Well, please do join me on News Talks to be tomorrow for live and local talkback, but from the CTV team, you have a great night.